Now, I know Game Week 29 isn't even over yet, but that doesn't stop me thinking about plans for Game Week 30. So here is players to buy and avoid for Game Week 30. Okay, to start the list off, we've got the man that everyone was waiting for news about going into the Game Week 29 deadline, and that's Erling Haaland. Now, based on Pep's press conference comments going into Game Week 29, it looks like he's obviously sustained a groin injury which kept him out of international break, but I believe he's back in training. I think Pep alluded to that in his comments, saying that they trained at the end of Friday before the Game Week 29 deadline to understand his fitness, and unfortunately he was deemed not fit enough to play in 29. What that means is I expect him to be fit enough in Game Week 30. I think quite a few of the Man City insider accounts that I follow on Twitter predict that he's going to be back fit to play in Game Week 30. And I think just the fact that, this guy's got potential to be the best FPL asset we've ever seen. He's going to break the Premier League scoring record, providing he doesn't pick up any more serious injuries. And he's got the highest expected points for Game Week 30 and 31 of all the players in the game. And yeah, Southampton away, Leicester at home. Two teams, one of them fighting relegation. Leicester looking pretty terrible at the moment. Like, those are two fixtures that you'd really like Erling Haaland in your team for. And I think if you're free hitting in Game Week 32 when he has a blank, you're going to get rid of him from your team in 32. So for me, he's absolutely essential if you are planning to free hit in 32. Maybe you could tactically play your team without him choosing like alternative captains in 30 and 31. I'd do that and I'd be very scared of him, to be honest. But it is a viable way to play it because you're going to need a full team in 32. But yeah, other than that, I mean, if you're free hitting, like I think most of us are planning to do in 32, Erling Haaland is absolutely essential to get into your FPL team. And just looking at his underlying numbers, he's top of any player in the league. 0.86 expected goals per 90, 0.16 expected assists per 90. That's the best in the Premier League of any player in totality. 1.02 expected returns per 90. I don't really have a history of those stats across all seasons, across all players, but I'd hedge that he's probably one of the best expected returns per 90 in Premier League history. Now, if I was making this video at this stage last season, I wouldn't even be considering featuring Salah in a video because he was just absolutely essential, and I'd assume that everyone, well, apart from Andy Martin on Twitter, everyone had him in their team. This season, obviously, he's not having as good a season as he has had previously, but I don't really think that's down to Salah. I think that's just Liverpool themselves have retracted as a team, and they're just not as good. But Salah just seems to be able to score goals against pretty much anyone. He's just scored in Game Week 29 against Man City at the Etihad, and I just think Arsenal, with that Saliba injury, they conceded to Leeds at home. I think they look a bit weaker defensively, so I wouldn't let the Game Week 30 fixture for Salah. Obviously Arsenal top of the league, best defence in the league, but I still fancy Salah to do okay against them. And as well, I think you'd make this transfer if you are definitely not free hitting in 32, because Salah's the best captain by far in Game Week 32. Nottingham Forest at home, and before that Leeds away. Two great fixtures that you'd really want Mo Salah in your team for. And I think right now he's got a 17% ownership in the top 10k. Now, I'm not expecting everyone to watch this video to be in the top 10k, but like overall FPL ownership is sort of, it filters. It doesn't filter out the players with inactive teams. Like, say, you pick your team at the start of the season, you'd have had Mo Salah in it. And yeah, those guys will be filling up the ownership figures. So if you look specifically at the top 10k, those are active managers. And you can see that Salah's only 17% owned. So it'd be a nice differential for you if you want to climb ranks. And looking at his underlying numbers there, they're not as good as they have been, but 0.7 expected returns per 90 is still an elite level. It's up there with the likes of Harry Kane, not quite Erling Haaland levels, but it's very, very good. And I think you're still going to get points for your money for him. And yeah, if you're not free hitting in 32, he's the best captain. So definitely a player to be considering bringing into your team. Next up, well, a guy that I didn't sell for Game Week 29, and he missed his fixture v Leeds due to illness. I didn't even realise he was ill. A lot of news came out on Twitter about him being ill, but it was April Fool's Day yesterday on the Saturday, so I didn't quite believe it. I just thought it was being pranked, but yeah, it turns out he had an illness during the week after his England duties. And yeah, Arteta just deemed him not fit to play. I said Arteta then. You can laugh at me. But yeah, I think, his illness, he was on the bench, which suggests that, he's not completely debilitated by it. So I think he's going to be back for game week 30. And just in my opinion, he's been one of the best players in the league this season. And looking at those fixtures, like, he could easily return in any of them. I wouldn't let the Liverpool and Man City ones put me off. Chelsea don't look very good at all. I think he could cause all of these teams troubles. And especially, again, similar to Salah, if you're not planning to free hit in 32, he's absolutely essential to get back in your team, because if you're going without Saka in 32, then yeah, I don't know what you're doing with yourself. Like, he's arguably the best captain. Southampton at home is a great fixture, similar to Salah against Forest. Like, the two guys are absolutely essential, in my opinion, for game week 32. His underlying numbers, they are the strongest of the Arsenal midfielders. I think Trossard's getting himself up there with the sheer amount of assists that he's getting, but I just think the penalty factor and the nailedness of Saka, like, he is the best player in that Arsenal team. So he's going to play every game that he's fit for as many minutes as possible. So he's just the most safest, secure Arsenal pick, and he's probably the best. Right, my next player is a little bit more punty, and I'm saying this before he's even played his games in game week 29, and that's Jarrod Bowen. Just looking at his underlying numbers, they're not too far off what they were last season. He was on 0.54 expected returns per 90 last season. This year he's on 0.44. Now, obviously that's a bit of a downer, but it's not by too much. And I think, not blanking in 32, having a double game week in 34 as well, given that it is Crystal Palace and Man City. Obviously, the Man City fixture, you'd take what you can get in that one, but it's still a double and an opportunity for him to get returns. And just in general, I think, the fact that he's been underperforming his numbers this season, it suggests to me that something's got to give. And hopefully towards the end of the season, that means that, he's going to become, that's sort of the way underlying numbers work, right? The actual returns never correlate to the underlying numbers, but over the course of a season or a couple of seasons' time, they tend to be quite level, but it never happens game on game. It's not a direct trend. But I'm hoping that, and I do think that those returns will start to go towards what the expected numbers are towards the end of this season. And I think, West Ham, they're not safe from relegation. And I think they really need, I'd suggest that Bowen's still their talisman. They're going to need him to get goals. And I think he can do that. I just have a feeling about him. He's only 2.7% owned across the whole game. Yeah, doesn't blank in 32. Similar, pretty much all the players I'm going to suggest here don't blank in 32. I think if you're making transfers this week for players that have a blank game week in 32, you're not free hitting, you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot, really. But yeah, Jarrod Bowen, he's a bit differential, and I'm not expecting, this might be a hard sell for some people, but yeah, I've just got a feeling about him, and I really think you should consider him. Okay, my final player to buy, well, it's just an honourable mention really to Andreas Pereira. I'm not saying that you should immediately scrounge around to get him in your team and captain him, etc., because he's not that type of player. He's never going to be like the Salah or Haaland explosive haul, captain every week kind of guy, but he just deserves credit. He's gone down to 4.3 million now, and he returned again. He got a goal against Bournemouth in 29. He's absolutely nailed in that Fulham team. I don't see anyone taking his place. He takes the penalties when Mitrovic is on the pitch. And yeah, just around the price, he's by far the best option. And when you look at expected returns per 90, etc., I know I've just bigged up Jarrod Bowen, but just looking at Andreas Pereira, he's not too far off, Jarrod Bowen's level. And he's 4.3 million. Yeah, I just think he deserves an honourable mention, really, and some respect, because he's been a great asset, and people are just selling him. I'm guilty of it. I don't have him in my team at the moment, but he just continually chugs away with nice returns. And whenever I've needed him when he's been on my bench, he's always been there. So I just wanted people basically not to forget about him as an option. If you're free hitting in game week 32 or whatever, where he's got Leeds at home, and you're looking for a cheap player, I think he could well fill your team. So yeah, Andreas Pereira deserves some respect and a special mention in this video. And these are pretty obvious avoids, but there are no particular players that I don't like the look of at the moment. So I've not got any individuals that I'd want to avoid, but Mainly it's just defences, and first of all being the Man City defence. I've mentioned these guys in pretty much every buy and avoid video I've done, but if you've still got a Man City defender lingering in your team, I don't know what you're doing really, in the nicest way possible. I mean, you can't back any one defender to play all the games. They're not keeping clean sheets. Pep is untrustworthy in his press conferences about, whether he's going to start players, their fitness, etc. And they blank in 32 as well, so it's just so many better options for less money in defence, and they're just not worth the hassle and stress. Like, having to worry about, are your players going to start week on week in FPL is just not a fun way to play the game. And the game is, it's meant to be enjoyed, and you can't do that, I don't think, if you've got Man City defenders in your team. And then my final avoid is another defence, and it's just Liverpool. My thinking was it might be tempting for people to go for them, given that they don't have a blank and a decent fixture against Forest in 32, but just defensively they're not up to scratch in my opinion. And it's not necessarily that the defenders are bad, I just think the midfield is not good enough to protect the defence. They just don't have enough legs in midfield anymore to go 90 minutes and protect that defence, and they're 10th in the league at the moment for expected goals conceded, so they're a mid-table defence in my opinion. And yeah, there's no clear centre-back pairing. I don't know if that has an impact on how they defend, but yeah, you just can't back, you can't pick a centre-back from Liverpool basically. Obviously Robertson and Trent are the two best options, but yeah, just the fact that they're just not good defensively. I think Trent is such a liability on that right back position, and I think that's partly down to the fact he doesn't have any competition. There's no one in that squad pushing him for a place, and therefore he just doesn't have to work on his defending. He just knows he's going to start every week. Anyway, without going into Liverpool's problems, I'm not a Liverpool fan, so sometimes I can find it quite easy to bash them. But yeah, quite simply, I wouldn't be picking any Liverpool defenders. That's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave me a like rating and subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. I'll be back again this week with another video in the next one.